I've been through a lot in my life. When I was 14, my mom died in a car accident. It hit my family hard. My dad was so depressed after her death that he became an alcoholic. There were days where he would drink so much that he wouldn't be able to wake up the next morning. This really scared both me and my younger brother, because we felt like we were going to lose my dad too. As you can imagine, it was hard for my dad to keep a stable job, so my brother and I got part-time jobs to help earn money while we were still in school. One day, a job opportunity came up that I just couldn't say no to. It was something that could save our family. And that's how I ended up kidnapping a baby that didn't belong to me. Between going to school and my part-time job at a restaurant, I didn't have any time to make any friends or enjoy myself. We barely scraped by. We could only afford to eat canned food, and the money my brother and I were making was not enough to survive. We were working so much, but saved so little. As much as I tried to save, my dad would take money from us so he could go buy more alcohol. I wanted to escape this terrible life so badly. The only thing I could look forward to in my life was moving away to college. I was going to graduate this year, but as much as I would love to go to college, I still had to take care of my brother. And besides, college was too expensive for me. My dream seemed farther and farther away, and I was starting to lose hope. No matter how many jobs I took, it seemed like I could never escape. One night, I was working my usual shift at the restaurant. It was a small diner close to my house. They served late-night food and coffee, and I was always working the night shift. The night shift isn't the safest. Let's just say the people who come in are interesting. While I was working that night, one of my usual customers, Jim, came in and ordered his late-night coffee. He was a truck driver, so he worked long hours. We started chatting, and I sort of spilled my whole story to him and told him I was looking for work. I was desperate. I needed money, and I needed it fast. He told me that he knew someone that could help. If I wanted to earn some fast cash, I would have to meet him at the diner again tomorrow night at the same time. He said he would introduce me to some people. The next night, I headed to the diner for my usual shift. I didn't see Jim yet, so I figured I would just work until he got here. I was wiping down the counter when an attractive, well-dressed-looking couple came over to me and sat down at the counter. They looked at me and whispered something to each other that I couldn't hear. Finally, the man spoke up and said, "Are you a friend of Jim's?" I said yes, and he told me that he and his wife have been trying to have a baby for a few years, but had no luck. It turns out that his wife has a medical condition that made her unable to have kids. They were looking for a healthy surrogate woman to have their baby, and told me they could pay me in cash up front. There was one condition. I couldn't tell anybody about our arrangement, and I wasn't allowed to know their names. They made me sign a few papers stating that no matter what, I could not keep the baby and that I would have to give up the child to them. I was desperate, so I agreed and we got to work right away. The procedure was actually pretty simple and painless. The child would be a combination of my genes and the husband's genes, since his wife could not produce an egg or something. After the procedure was done, I was told to go home and live my normal life, but make sure that the baby was healthy. They gave me the cash up front and some extra money for food and medicine. I stashed the money in a bag and put it under my mattress. It was important that I take extra care of my body for the baby and take all the right medicines. This was going to be easy, or so I thought. Over the next few months, I was constantly in pain. My back hurt, my head hurt, and just everything hurt. It was hard to move around, and I always had strange food cravings. I had to put up with it, though, if I wanted to go to college. So I just kept telling myself that this was all so I could make a better life for myself. I was trying to eat healthier and take all of my vitamins. Things were going smoothly until one day I decided to check the money I hid under my mattress. I reached under the mattress and pulled out the bag. I opened it and saw that it was empty. The cash was gone. I panicked and went into shock and fainted. I fell pretty hard on my side, but thankfully not on my stomach. I hoped the baby was all right. I cried all night that night. I didn't bother looking because I knew who took it. It was my dad. My dad must have found my money and taken it and spent it all on alcohol. The money was long gone by now. There was no way I was getting it back. But I still had to deliver that couple a baby. I became more and more depressed. I stopped eating and sleeping regularly. I didn't take my medicine anymore. I was just so sad inside. How could my father do this to me? Was I ever going to escape this terrible life? On top of that, I still had to deliver this baby. I just wanted all of this to be over. It wasn't even really my kid. One day, I felt a terrible pain in my stomach. It was the most painful thing I've ever felt. And I had a feeling that maybe the baby might be coming. I asked my brother to drive me to the hospital. He rushed through traffic and got me to the closest hospital. They rushed me into the delivery room immediately and started running a bunch of tests. I was in so much pain, but I kept pushing and pushing. I couldn't really tell what was going on. They gave me some drugs to make the delivery easier. After hours and hours of pushing, I finally delivered the baby. But something was wrong. I could tell by the doctor's face something had happened. He looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, your baby didn't make it. You miscarried." I was devastated. The doctors left me alone so I could cry in private. I felt so much sadness. I know it wasn't technically my baby, but part of it was. And because of my depression, I didn't take care of my body. Suddenly, I snapped back into my senses. That couple was expecting a baby, and I didn't have one. The money had already been spent, so I couldn't give it back to them. I started to panic. What was I going to do? Once I felt a bit better, I decided to clear my head by going for a walk around the delivery ward. On my walk, I saw a room full of newborn babies today, alive and well. That gave me an idea. Could I really go through with this, though? It seemed wrong, but I was desperate, and they were going to be here any minute. I quietly snuck into the room and found a sleeping baby in the back of the room. I carefully picked her up so I wouldn't wake her, then wrapped a bunch of blankets together and placed them in her crib to make it seem like she was still there. I snuck out of the hospital and drove home. I texted the couple to meet me at my house instead of the hospital, so I could introduce them to their new daughter. I could tell they were super excited. I handed them the baby, and they looked so happy. They took her home, and I knew she would be in good hands. I felt so guilty for kidnapping someone else's baby and lying to this couple. But at this point, I have nothing to lose. I lost my money, my chances at college, and my mom. What can even happen now? If you're going through a tough time, I want to hear about it. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to hear about more stories like this.
i3 Creators.